Thank you, Chief. I also want to thank you and every man and woman in a Border Patrol uniform for what you do. It's dangerous. I spent about a week down there a couple of months ago and saw firsthand what you're confronted with, and I thank them for their courage and their service, and the families of fallen agents, because there are many.
Thank you.
I also want to go back and talk about a secure border from a humanitarian perspective. I was struck when I was down around Falfurrias, and I met with a ranch owner. He owned about a 7,500 acre ranch, which folks from Texas know that's like a 1 acre lot in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's small. But over 10 years, they've recovered 100 bodies on that very small patch of land. And when you multiply that times the expanse of the southern border, it gives you a real appreciation for the estimated 11,000 immigrants who've lost their lives since the early 90s into the mid-2000s. This is a humanitarian crisis, regardless of how you feel about border security. These are people crossing the border illegally who are dying. And they're dying because we don't have the right mix of people, technology, and infrastructure in place to have the situational awareness where we can apprehend them and save them. So in addition to securing the border, we need to understand that this is a humanitarian crisis for those who lose their lives to the coyotes. You leave them out in the woods and flee when they see a Border Patrol agent, and they may not make it to a safe place. It's also a humanitarian crisis for the hundreds of thousands of people who have died as a result of the drugs that have come across that border illegally. And until we secure the border, that's going to continue. Do you agree with that?
So a more secure border would prevent all of those ancillary effects near the border, like in Falfurrias.
I think so. So I think we need to define this in the context of the humanitarian crisis it is. And actually, Senator Durbin and I happen to share opinions about certain things that we should do around immigration reform. But I feel like before we start solving the broader problem that we would get to that's outside of the scope of this committee, we ought to talk about ending the humanitarian crisis and the growth of the problem by providing you all with the resources that you need to secure it, and to secure the Border Patrol agents who are out there every day. We rode on horseback. I was on patrol boats, was on ATVs with them late at night on that ranch that I talked about. It's a dangerous situation. Now I want to get to the solution for the wall. Do you feel like anybody now is seriously discussing, we can get past the campaign rhetoric from last year, getting to the practical tasks that we have ahead of us? Do you believe that there is anyone at the other end of the street that is proposing tearing down working structures and putting in some large monolithic 20-foot or 30-foot wall all the way from California down to the Rio Grande?
No, that's not how we're approaching it.
Yeah. And do you think that the Border Patrol agents, what I was struck by when we were talking about a structure down there, they're saying a monolithic wall would not necessarily protect them in all places, because it would reduce sight lines, it would create unknowns, because you would simply, if you put all the money in concrete and structures, then you're not putting it in ISR and other kinds of technologies that better enable them to do their jobs. Is that the kind of discussion you're having in Homeland Security?
So in the requirements that we asked the field for about where they think they needed barrier and where barrier made sense, it is the understanding, and when they send up plans, that's their understanding that the wall, it won't just be the structure, it won't just be the road next to it, but it'll be access, and it'll be all the technology that allows us to understand when people are approaching the barrier, and cameras and lights, so that agents can respond to traffic that still chooses to cross.
So am I correct in assuming that anybody on this end of the street who would say that we're going to have just this one large monolithic structure, remove all the things that are working right now to build a big, beautiful wall, that may be a bit of an exaggeration in terms of what you're tasked to do?
What we're doing now is we've asked industry to come forward with ideas. Some of those ideas will be wall that's expressed in concrete. It'll be built out of concrete. Some of it will be other material. We'll look at what industry can provide for us, and then we'll decide amongst those successful bidders which application is most appropriate for which part of the border we need to use it in.
Thank you. I'm going to ask a few other questions, since I think I'll still be chairing. So at this point, I will defer to Senator Klobuchar.
Oh, thank you very much.